pay 23 billion pesos in estate taxes in 1997, but figures could balloon to 203 billion pesos, including penalties and interests.
And then I will have to talk to the president that BIR needs to collect it. No? And maybe I will inform him, Mr. President, it's not you who's going to pay this, but it's the estate. No?
Correct.
Your family, I hope that there will be no objections and be a role model to at least comply the rules of taxation.
President-elect Marcos earlier said, quote, there is a lot of fake news involved in the estate tax issue and that it would be better to leave the matter to lawyers. Will the migrant workers chief heed calls to lift the deployment ban on Filipino workers to Saudi Arabia? Incoming Secretary Susan Toots Ople vows to exhaust all diplomatic channels to decide on the matter. And as Tristan Odal reports, Ople is finalizing her priority programs for the new department.
Overseas Filipino worker Arabel is returning to Saudi Arabia for the third time. We met her while she was saying goodbye to her parents and 2 children at the airport.
Malulungkot na naman kasi andito yung mga kasama ko yung mga baby ko. Pati si mama, si papa. Apo. Kasi ito yung mga kasama ko paalis.
Arabel says processing her documents went smoothly last month, but it's not the same with other returning OFWs. She expresses hope that the new Department for Migrant Workers and the incoming Marcos administration can help expedite the process.
Yung iba nagpa-medical na, yung gastos-gasto, sana bagad na mapabilis din yung pag-alis nila. Kasi yung mayroon ako ibang mga kasama na ang tagal ng naghihintay.
In a roundtable discussion with Business Mirror, incoming Migrant Workers Secretary Susan Toots Ople says she'll spend her first day in office reviewing all processes involving deployment of OFWs.
Lahat ng sistema mula sa pag-a-apply, mula sa pagkuha ng OEC, yung mga mandatory fees, paano ba ang verification, ano ba ang dapat na datnan ng OFW sa mga embahada natin. So lahat nun isi-systems review natin.
Also part of Ople's initial plans for the department includes setting up migrant workers' offices in embassies and conducting global town hall meetings. She also intends to tap social media platforms to combat human trafficking and illegal recruitment.
Mas mabilis na takedown ng mga FB pages na pugad ng illegal recruitment.
For now, Ople is not keen on lifting the deployment ban for newly hired domestic helpers bound for Saudi Arabia. The ban was imposed by Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello due to unpaid wages and benefits for some 10,000 OFWs.
We cannot lift the ban without certain assurances. We have to come up with a more balanced and realistic solution. So, yeah, we will explore diplomatic solutions.
The incoming migrant workers chief eyes full operation of the new department in January 2023. Under the law, the new department needs to meet 3 conditions: an implementing rules and regulation, an approved staffing pattern, and a budget under the 2023 General Appropriations Act. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
In other news, in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia City Hall offering a $20,000 reward for any leads on the gunman behind the fatal shooting of a Filipino lawyer. Philippine Consul General in New York, Elmer Cato, says Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney apologized for the, quote, terrible tragedy and vowed that justice will be served in the case of John Albert Lilo. Lilo and his mother were riding an Uber on the way to the airport when at least 6 shots were fired at their vehicle last weekend. More stories ahead on Newsnight. It is day 1 of the booster rollout for minors with underlying illnesses. CNR Kanghel tells us how the vaccinations went here in Metro Manila. And how are hospitals faring amid the uptick in COVID-19 cases? Caroline Bonkin shows us the situation on the ground. You're watching CNN Philippines. the health department records a steady rise in infection. Carolyn Bonkin gives us a look on the ground at the San Lazaro Hospital in Manila.
A man was rushed to San Lazaro Hospital in Manila on Wednesday afternoon. Having difficulty breathing, health workers gave him oxygen supply. He's a suspected COVID-19 patient.
San Lazaro Hospital saw fewer COVID-19 patients in April and May, but this month, more people are coming for COVID-19 testing and consultations.
Ngayon po, we have 25 cases admitted. Although mababa po ito, but compared to 2 weeks ago, we only had 8 admissions.
Most patients here have mild and moderate COVID-19 symptoms.
If we see a need na wala po silang mauwian, wala pong isolation for them, so ina-admit po namin for isolation or quarantine purposes.
Should cases go up further, Dr. De Guzman says they're more prepared now. The hospital has kept its COVID triage and testing areas intact. A new building for emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases opened this year, with additional beds for COVID-19 patients. Medicines and equipment all stocked up.
Nag-level 1 tayo. It has given us time to recharge.
There are still over 150 empty COVID beds. The health department reports over 450 daily COVID-19 cases in the past week. That's almost the same as those recorded in the second week of February. But health officials do not see a need to raise the alert level.
Hindi sumasabay ang severe and critical. It is not translating to a higher admission in our hospitals.
Let's put it in perspective. We had 18,000 cases a day in Metro Manila in January. Ilan kahapon? 218. Ang layo-layo nun.
But DOH shares latest projections, citing another possible surge in infections by third week of July to first week of August, with a presence of more transmissible and immune-escaping variants, low compliance to health protocols, and slow booster uptake.
Pinaka-importante ngayon sa ating mga komunidad, lahat na magkakaroon ng simptomas, isolate at once. Magpabakuna na po tayo kung tayo po ay eligible.
Health officials report 32 more transmissible Omicron subvariant BA.5 cases on Wednesday, but say there's still no community transmission yet, as the cases could still be linked together. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
The health department begins rolling out boosters for immunocompromised adolescents. CNR Kanghel tells us when the rest of the 12 to 17 age group can follow suit.
16-year-old Kian Nimes and his father were at the National Children's Hospital for check-up when they learned about the ongoing rollout of a third dose of vaccine for immunocompromised minors aged 12 to 17. With COVID cases on the rise again, Richard Nimes grabbed the chance to have his son, who has kidney disease, vaccinated.
Katulad yan, nagkaroon na siya ng sakit. Humihina po yung immune system. Kaya pwede po siyang kapitan ng kaya pinabaksin ko na po siya. Para po kung sakali pong tamaan po tayo ng virus, hindi naman po grabe talaga na mapupunta sa severe.
So far, only the National Children's Hospital and Quirino Memorial Medical Center in Quezon City are offering third doses to immunocompromised minors. But the health department says the rollout will be expanded next week, with various local and private hospitals in Metro Manila allowed to administer the shots. An estimated 238,000 immunocompromised children aged 12 to 17 are eligible for a third dose, which they could receive at least 28 days after getting a second shot. These include those who have renal or metabolic conditions, are receiving cancer treatment, or taking high-dose steroids that weaken the immune system. The Food and Drug Administration has issued an emergency use authorization for Pfizer as a third dose for adolescents.
We know very well that they are the most vulnerable to infection. Kaya talagang we are prioritizing them.
During the ceremonial rollout at the Children's Hospital, only 1 out of the 3 kids presented to the media received a third dose. The other 2 got inoculated for the first time. The hospital chief, Dr. Moriel Creencia, says immunocompromised minors need medical clearance to get a third shot.
Meron pong isa ngayon dapat na renal patient. Unfortunately, ay hindi po siya na-clear ng aming nephrologist kasi sobrang taas daw po yung steroids pa niya.
The DOH says over 9 million adolescents without comorbidities could receive a third COVID jab soon.
Ang iba pong mga kabataan 12 to 17 years old ay isusunod na rin po soon, maybe by next week or a couple of days after the immunocompromised. Gusto lang po nating ayusin ang pagpapatupad.
The DOH says it is stepping up its information campaign to encourage parents with immunocompromised children, senior citizens, and adults with comorbidities to get a third COVID-19 dose. Cian Arcangel, CNN, Philippines.
Health spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergara is set to lead the National COVID-19 Vaccination Operations Center. Health Secretary Francisco Duque designated her as the center's next incident manager. Vergara will replace Undersecretary Mirna Cabutaje effective June 30th. Millions of younger children in the United States can now receive protection for COVID-19. Only Pfizer doses may be administered for kids 6 months to 5 years old for now, as the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has yet to recommend Moderna for the age group. Younger children can get their vaccines at pediatricians' offices or clinics and pharmacies. A fourth COVID-19 shot may be on the horizon for the rest of the American population. U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy says discussions are underway. Vaccine advisors will meet on updated COVID-19 doses on June 28th. Murthy says the CDC has recommended another booster for 50 years old and above. Back here at home, groups condemned the order to block access to websites allegedly linked to communist rebels, calling it a, quote, blatant attack on the freedom of information and expression. The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, or NUJP, denounces the, quote, arbitrary inclusion of Bulatlat, Pinoy Weekly, and other independent news sites. The rights group Amnesty International also expressing deep concern over the directive, made just 1 week before the Marcos administration takes office. Calls on the government to rescind the order. The National Telecommunications Commission ordered internet service providers to immediately block websites supposedly linked to terror groups following the request of National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon. Sports and entertainment news. Still ahead, a historic feat for the NU Lady Bulldogs, who won the UAAP women's volleyball title after over 6 decades. Plus, a former actress in the Philippines has officially debuted as a K-pop idol. Find out how Shanti began her music journey in Korea after the break. 5-year drought is over for the NU Lady Bulldogs. Beating LaSalle for the UAAP Women's Volleyball crown. NU took finals Game 2 in 3 sets on Wednesday at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay and completed a rare sweep of season 84. Another significant win for the Lady Bulldogs, with Belia Belen becoming the tournament's first rookie MVP. NU's head coach tells CNN Philippines Sports Desk what makes the player and the rest of the winning team so special.
Si Bella kasi, pagdating sa training, makita mo kasi talaga yung eagerness niya. Lahat sila gusto niya mag-improve every training and sobrang nakikinig sila. Kaya isa pa kasi yung maganda sa attitude nila, enjoy lang talaga sila. Kahit nahihirapan, kahit may masakit.
NU team captain Princess Robles went home with the finals MVP title. Filipino fans of Alanis Morissette will have to wait longer to see the Canadian-American artist live in Manila again. The singer's 2-day show for her Jagged Little Pill tour at the MOA Arena was canceled because of scheduling issues and, quote, logistical challenges of global touring in 2022. Alanis says she will return to the country as soon as she can. Ticket holders will be fully refunded. A Filipina-Argentinian actress has officially joined the K-pop scene, making her debut with how do you pronounce this? Lapilus. Chantal Videla, also known as Shanti, released the single Hitya under the girl group this week. The 19-year-old singer has starred in Filipino shows and was part of Star Magic Circle's 2018 batch alongside Donnie Pangilinan and Charlie Dizon. Shanti spoke with CNN Philippines New Day on how she entered the Korean music industry.
Because of the pandemic, of course, I had to go back to Argentina and all that. But before that, how do you say it? Like my dad had this Korean friend, and that Korean friend had like connections with MLD Entertainment. There was a time where like our CEO has been looking for like possible like Filipina member for his future Korean girl group. And my dad's Korean friend happened to like, oh, look, what about this girl and stuff like that. And then that's where chain reaction, we met the CEO, we had a meeting, and then he just wanted me to start the training at first. And that's where it started.
The music video for Hitya is trending on YouTube with nearly 600,000 views. And that is it for now. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as Usual at 8. That's our new time slot. I'm Pia Honteveros. Before we go, let's take a look at the importance of farm-to-market roads in ensuring proper transport of food supply.
At the height of the pandemic, movement was limited to only essential goods and services, led to a scarcity for consumers and surplus for producers. This brought to light the importance of farm-to-market roads, bridges, and similar construction projects related to food and agriculture.
Nag-grow out kami ng tilapia. Tapos recently may cream dory kami, may hipon. Kami din yung nagsusupply ng tilapia in nearby provinces like La Union, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Bataan, sa Manila, tsaka sa Cavite. Nag-harvest kami everyday, 25 to 30 tons a day. Tapos everyday nasa kalsada din kami nagdi-deliver ng isda. Yung dinideliver namin, kailangan live makarating sa market. May truck kami, may tangke, kailangan ng tubig. Para pagdating sa market, buhay pa yon. Yung dory namin, pag gina-harvest namin, naka-ice. Kaya dapat as soon as possible makarating sa market din para di matunawan ng yelo, para fresh pa rin. Importante sa amin sa deliver yung mga expressways. Kasi pag live tilapia, dapat on time makarating sa market. Halimbawa, pag sa La Union, dati nung wala pa yung TPLEX, mga 7 hours yung biyahe. Laking ginhawa nung may TPLEX. 4 hours na lang. Dahil bumilis yung biyahe ng truck, yung mga tao, hindi masyadong pagod, hindi masyadong puyat. Hindi rin delikado sa highway. Malaking bagay yung mga farm to market road tulad ng mga expressways natin. Kasi pag humahango ka ng di-deliver, mapapabilis yung deliver niya. konti yung expenses, makakatipid. Kami, isda yung business namin. Kailangan namin yung expressway para on time yung deliver sa market ng product namin. Sa Pilipinas naman, sagana tayo sa resources. Kaya dapat tayo, tangkilikin natin yung sarili natin. Sa tulong ng expressway, nakokonektan niya lahat yung probinsya ng Pilipinas. Napapadali siyang makarating sa pagkainan ng tao.
Our expressways provide faster access to local agriculture and livestock suppliers. Expressways, road infrastructure plays a very significant role in accelerating agricultural production. It is one of the key components for development as it promotes access to economic and social services, generating increased agricultural income and productive employment.
Two years of working at home have made people feel safer during the pandemic. But now that a number of companies are asking their employees to report to work, many are feeling anxious and worried about going back to their cubicles. In today's episode, we'll talk about the adjustments we need to make as we return to our workplace. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching NetTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. She is a psychologist from To talk about how to safely return to work, we are joined by Ms. Marie Paz Consolacion Manaligod. She is a psychologist from the Miriam College. Also with us is Dr.
has saliva on them like water bottles or cups, and participating in close contact activities like playing sports, dancing, or kissing. Mumps actually is not an airborne disease. An infected person can spread mumps from a few days before the salivary glands begin to swell up to 5 days after the swelling begins through droplet transmission.
Bacteria ba ito, Dr. Nicole? Is this a virus? Is there some way that someone can be protected from mumps?
This is included in your MMR vaccine. So that's your measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. So if any of you have children less than 2 years old, you will see that your child received 1 MMR vaccine at the age of 12 to 15 months. And they get their second shot when they're about 4 to 6 years old. So right about school age. So that's the best way to prevent it. So if you have 2 doses of your MMR vaccine, that's about 88% protective. But of course, we have to remember, wala pong perfect vaccine. No? So over time, bumababa din yung protective antibodies that you get from the vaccine. That's why you have a booster.
How about a booster shot for adults? Is this something practical to do? Should adults who have had an MMR when they were a child, should they get boosted in order to protect themselves from one of these as mumps?
Your levels of antibodies decreases over time. So I'm like you and I, we had our MMR booster right before medical school. And sometimes these are requirements prior to starting college or prior to starting work. So this is usually included in your pre-employment screening or preschool screening.
Why should we be very vigilant in trying to prevent the spread of mumps, the infection of mumps? Let's talk about some of the complications that someone with mumps may have if they contract this.
There are many complications actually for moms, and one of these is it may cause pain and swelling of the testicles for the males and ovaries for females that will actually resolve in 1 week. Take note that this rarely results to infertility. Mumps may also cause inflammation of the pancreas that will lead to the upper abdominal pain, and as well as it can cause inflammation of the brain and its covering, leading to encephalitis or meningitis, posing a severe headache, nausea, vomiting, and confusion.
Dr. Nicole, can mumps appear to be or mistaken to be any other disease that might be common among Filipinos?
It can present similarly to bacterial infection or bacterial infection of the salivary gland. So that would also cause fever, body aches, headaches, and swelling of the infected salivary gland. So it can actually be mistaken for that. But your doctor will help you differentiate between mumps and bacterial infection. So it can also be mistaken for other causes of viral infections that can cause swelling of the lymph nodes, but particularly bacterial sialadenitis or bacterial infection of your salivary glands.
How can someone be properly diagnosed to have mumps so that the proper treatment may be started?
We usually diagnose mumps based on the swollen salivary glands. A buccal swab specimen is collected within 3 days after the swelling of the gland. That is the preferred specimen to confirm mumps infection. This swab sample may be submitted for RT-PCR to detect the RNA of the virus. Also, a sample from your saliva or a blood sample may be submitted for RT-PCR.
Up next, we'll discuss how to treat as well as prevent diseases like infectious mononucleosis and mumps. Med Talk Health Talk will be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. Let's talk a little bit about the treatment for both infectious mononucleosis as well as mumps, and what you can do in your lifestyle to try and prevent these types of diseases. I'll start first with Doc Matt. When it comes to lifestyle, we talked about some of the risk factors of contracting infectious mononucleosis as well as mumps. What can people do with their overall health?
Since now we know the mode of transmission of these 2 viral diseases, we have to put emphasis on how to prevent it. Number 1 is if you're going outside, you have to wear masks, prevent from doing intimate activities with a person with a known vaccination status. And also, you have at least healthy diet. You have to drink more water. You have to balance your diet with fruits and vegetables.
Dr. Nicole, I'd like to talk about vaccines a little bit with you. A lot of Filipinos now are well aware of the limitations of vaccines, what to expect, especially when it comes to boosters as well. In general, though, how should people treat vaccines, especially when it comes to vaccine-preventable diseases?
In this case for moms, no, because you could transmit the infection even before symptoms of lymph node swelling. So I think what's important is you're up to date with your boosters, because of course some parents think that once their child has had a childhood dose, then that will last them throughout their child's lifetime. So I think what's important is to keep in touch with your family doctor or your pediatrician and make sure your children, even if they're teenagers already, are up to date with their, not just the primary doses, but their boosters as well.
What advice can you give those who have been diagnosed with infectious mononucleosis or with mumps for that matter? How should they treat that?
We try to stay as healthy as possible. Sometimes it's just unavoidable. You do get exposed to somebody who is sick with these infections. And I guess what's best is to keep your health up. During the pandemic, a lot of us have been trying to lose weight, stay fit, stay healthy, exercise. And these are all factors that can help us get over these infections faster and prevent complications, because it's hard to really say that, there's something that will 100% prevent you from any of these illnesses. So I guess what's best is to keep your batting average of getting over these high, so that staying healthy and being up to date with your shots.
When it comes to the vaccine for mumps, should people be aware of any side effects that yung vaccine for mumps might bring?
Usually, number one is the pain at the injection site. That is the most common. And some of the patients receiving this MMR would have a slight fever because this is a live vaccine. And also feeling of being tired. Rarely that would cause a loss of appetite, but that could be a risk factor, but at least lightest chance.
Infectious mononucleosis caused by the EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. Do we have a vaccine for that?
Unfortunately, we don't. But what's good about this is that we can identify it based on the signs and symptoms and lab tests. So that should help your doctor diagnose it correctly, even if we don't have anything to prevent it yet.
And that was another insightful episode here on MedTalk Health Talk. Thank you very much, Dr. Nicole Pereras Grande and Dr. Cesar Matthew Madria, for being with us today and sharing your tips and expertise about infectious mononucleosis and mumps. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.
Makalat breaking tweet ni at hindi ito scam. All caps, gamot sa cancer? Question mark. Miracle tea exclamation. Mapa stage 1, stage 2, stage 100. First 100 emoji to DM will be healed with good hair.
Huwag paloko, mag-fact check muna. Ang totoong balita, tunog tama, dapat tama. Isang paalaala mula sa KBP at ng istasyong ito.
Click number 2. Order now. Arrow down, arrow down.
A first on radio. DZKI-IRIGA welcomes CNN Philippines
to bring you the latest news you can use, news you can trust. Listen to Newsnight, weekdays, 6 p.m.
We now go above and beyond the headlines,
followed by Med Talk, Health Talk.
We'll talk about how to keep ourselves healthy during the pandemic.
Politics as usual.
In this country, not everything really goes according to plan, and politics is as usual.
Up close and more.
Catch CNN Philippines Hour on DZKI-IRIGA. Weekdays, 6 to 7 p.m.
Kamusta? 2 taon na pala, no? Pero alam mo, bilib ako sa mga nagawa natin. Patuloy na nagmask at nag-ingat. Inalagaan ang kalusugan, pati ang minamahal. Nagpabakuna at booster, kahit kabado, para protektado. Nagkaisa kaya malayong narating. Nakabalik sa mga miss nating gawin. Kinaya dahil sa alaga sa isa't isa. Kaya anumang hamon, mas kakayanin pa. Tuloy ang ingat, tuloy ang angat.
CNN Philippines Hour sa RPN-DZKI-IRIGA alas 6 hasta las 7 ng manggi, Lunes hanggang Biyernes. CNN Philippines Hour.